So let's get into the rivalry game. You're uniquely qualified to talk about it with your family ties at BYU, and you played at Utah. Your overall take on just the dynamic of this game, the excitement of the weeks leading up to it. We're 2 weeks away, and just how juiced are you to watch this?
I'm pretty juiced. I mean, it felt like rivalry week for the last 2 months, which in a way can be a little bit of overkill. Just between the back and forth amongst fans. So I'm ready to get it over with. I think if I had to choose when we play this game, I would prefer that it's played week 2 or 3. I would love the warm-up games, but I want to see the boys play. I'm super excited about this team, just given the talent that we have returning, and especially in certain key positions, and especially overall on the defense. It's exciting to see what we've been able to put together. It's going to be extremely interesting and exciting to see what Andy Ludwig can do with Tyler Huntley. I really liked Andy Ludwig the first time he was here. I wasn't so much a fan of the last guy, and so I wasn't sad to see him go. And so, yeah, I can't wait to see what's put on display in 2 weeks.
JD, one of the things that I've really been impressed with and kind of enjoyed about camp so far before they break into game prep next week is they all seem to be loose. They all seem to be in good moods. They all seem to really understand the message in the program. And I was a bit concerned about this because really for the first time since the U joined the Pac-12, it's not can they compete. It's not can they win 8 games. Can they make a bowl? It's they should go win the damn thing. And it's much different when you have the bullseye on your back as opposed to when you're chasing the team with the bullseye on their back. Have you seen any difference, any change to the approach now that Utah is the favorite to win the Pac-12?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just and I'm too busy. I haven't had a chance to go up and see any camp yet this year. I've been traveling a lot for work. That's another story. But you see it in the way they hold themselves. You see it in the way that they talk to the media. You see it in the way that they represent themselves on social media. And I think last year's success, making it to the championship game, was the validation that the program needed, that these players needed. That 1, they have arrived. 2, they deserve to be a part of the Pac-12, and 3, that they absolutely can contend for a title in this conference. So yes, I think just at least getting to that level last year has completely changed the mindset of these players. Now, I love Witt as an underdog. He's able to instill a mindset in his players when he feels like his back's against the wall, or they're being discredited and not given the credit that they deserve. So we're also going to see if it's truly changed, and with that bullseye on the back, that if they can handle it.
Last year when it was announced that Jalen was coming back and Bradley and Zach, JD, you thought maybe 1 or 2 would come back. When they all said they were coming back, I mean, that's really when the excitement started building here in Salt Lake City. And then nationally, obviously, people caught on because, Utah wins the South. They had a chance to win the whole thing. There was a 4 or 5 game stretch where they were elite offensively, and then the injuries set in. What was your reaction last year over that week, 10-day period when you saw that pretty much everybody who had a chance to come back was going to come back to try and do something special?
Well, it just made me realize how special this team is and how special the potential this team has. Because Bradley and I, Lecky Fotu, Zach Moss, those 3 don't come back unless they have the chance to finish some unfinished business and capitalize on it. Jalen's a junior, but there's just so much talent in other key positions. And I go back to that validating, I just said that, but it does. It validates, to us as fans, we have something special, and we could do something special this year because those 3 guys, and you're very connected into the pro circuit, and that life in the NFL is not long. And so for them to sacrifice a massive paycheck to come back and do this together as a team, it also just shows the culture that Coach Whittingham's created. These guys, it means something to them. It means something to be playing with their teammates, their brothers that are alongside them. So it did nothing but excite me and realize like this could be a special year.
Back to the rivalry game for a moment, JD. There's a lot of hope and optimism coming out of Provo when you talk to. We're going to chat with Aaron Roderick. And look, part of the BYU fan base is they always think their team is going to be really good, which is great. I think expectations sometimes are maybe a little bit over the top. But look, Kalani's now finally been there 4 years. It seems like he's put a stamp on the program, and it's hard not to love Kalani Sitake. Are you buying into any of the hype? Do you believe it's real? And should Utah be concerned?
Yes, they should always be concerned in a rivalry game. And especially this year more than ever. One, I think Kalani has been able to put some of the pieces that he wants in place from a personnel standpoint. He's trying with the limitations that he has to build a defense similar to what he had at Utah or similar to what we have at Utah. And I think he's done a very good job of that. There's some defensive linemen on that team that I actually really like. A couple linebackers that run around to the football. And he's even found a couple DBs, which has been, that's something that they haven't, DBs with talent and with some speed, that's something that they haven't had in Provo often. So one, yes, they should be, because just Kalani is putting the personnel in place. But two, this game means the world to them. Not only the players, the fan base, they're going to feed off of that excitement. They, more than anybody, is sick of hearing that 9 is coming or 8 in a row. And their backs are against the wall. We have a lot more to lose than they do. So you combine all of that, we should be nervous, and we cannot walk into this game like we did that Saturday after Thanksgiving last year, and which took us 3 quarters to wake up. Because if we do that this year, we'll lose.
How, in your experience, because you hear all these stories, like I was thinking about this morning. I remember when Bronco Mendenhall used to diminish the importance of the rivalry game and kind of downplay it. And on the other side, you hear the Kyle Whittingham urinal cake story and this is how serious we don't lose to those guys. What we do here in Utah, what we do here on campus in Salt Lake is we don't lose to BYU, whereas it seemed like Bronco kind of diminished the importance of the game. Obviously, it's different with Kalani, but in your experience, just how does Kyle Whittingham prepare his team to play BYU?
Oh, so the urinal cakes make me laugh. I was a part of when that started. I don't know how long that tradition stayed. Urban Meyer brought that in. But yes, I mean, going between the two. And so I got a perspective from my brother, playing under Bronco. And it was interesting to hear him, how it truly was just another week. And I felt like even during Bronco, they felt like the players, there was, just being brutally honest, there was an arrogance. I saw it in my brother, and he's going to kill me if he hears this, that they just thought that they were better than Utah. And it was one of those things where it's like, hey, we're going to go through the week. This is just another game. It's just like preparation for UNLV or Wyoming at the time. And it didn't seem like there was a sense of urgency, as opposed to when I played, and I didn't play under Coach Whittingham as a player, but I do remember Coach Whittingham speaking with passion and about this game being different during that week because of his ties, and how it just eats at him if he were to lose to BYU. And so he just instilled that mindset in the players, and I have a hard time believing, even though that we're in separate conferences, that he's not doing that still.
I mean, it just always baffled me, JD, because whether it's college football or the NBA or no matter what sport it is on, no matter what level, when you're playing your rival, it's disingenuous to not acknowledge that there's something different about the week. It always baffled me, and I don't think it's any coincidence that the culture Kyle has established. And look, we can talk about the Pac-12 inclusion and how that's caused some separation. And I still maintain that the day Kyle Whittingham chose Utah over his alma mater was the day these two programs started to split. All that's real. But in addition to, attendant to that, is you have a program who has instilled in their players and in their fans, we don't lose to those guys down south, and a program down south that the culture seemed to be instilled that it was just another game. And to me, there's no coincidence that the results bear that out.
No, and granted, like my conversations and my deep knowledge into that program was, it's 10 years ago. But it blew my mind. It literally blew my mind when talking to my brother about just the hatred between the two schools. And at the time, it really was so much more important to Utah fans and to Utah players to win that game. And, adjusting from that and moving on from that type of culture, it's a challenge. And it's still there with us as fans. You see it. It's still there with the players because you have guys like Kyle Whittingham. You have guys like Morgan Scalley, guys like Lewis Powell, who continue to instill that into the team and into the culture. I love it.
If Utah's season is to be a little bit derailed, like, is there a positional group you're concerned about? I mean, the kicking game, and after, Mitch and Andy for so long has locked that thing down, linebackers, fifth offensive line, like, is there anything you look at right now that's concerning you about your alma mater?
Yeah, the kickers, obviously, it's tough to replace, and I'm concerned about the reports coming out of camp. But the biggest concern I have is the offensive line. Last year, we win the Pac-12 championship with a dominant offensive line. There were times during the year where I was really disappointed in, situational football, where it was third and short or third and goal. And we lost because we got beat up front. And it wasn't so much the passing game, but it was extending drives. It was converting those fourth and shorts. It was converting the third and shorts, getting more than 3 points when Pita Tonga intercepts the ball against Washington and takes it down, fumbles it outside the 10-yard line. But with that quick a change of possession, those offensive linemen should be stoked. The defense is coming out defeated, like, oh my goodness, how could the offense put us in this situation? And we left with 3 points. And there were too many times last year where those types of situations where we lost. And for us to do this and for us to be effective in Andy Ludwig's offense, we have to be able to run the ball. We have to be able to block for Zach Moss and company behind him. And they have to step it up. And I truly believe that if there's one position that's going to stop us from winning the Pac-12 championship, it's that group.
A couple more minutes with J.D. Jorgensen, former Utah player. We're breaking down the Utes season, talking Utah BYU. J.D., if we want to get crazy here for a second and talk college football playoff, the reality is the Utes probably have to be a top 3 offensive team in the Pac-12. I know that's a tough ask, but if we're talking about something even super special outside of winning a conference and maybe doing something crazy like this, that really has to be the reality. Nobody is concerned about the defense. We've already talked about the defensive front and the quarterbacks and what Morgan does with that unit. You talked about Andy Ludwig to come into the interview. Do you believe it's possible, and what has to happen for Utah to be a top 3 or 4 offense in the Pac-12?
I do believe it's possible. I like the success that Andy had at Vanderbilt and how he was effectively able to move the ball against those defenses with lesser talent. Vanderbilt has the academic restrictions. They're not able to recruit like other SEC teams, nor do they have the storied programs. But he was still able to effectively score points against the Georgias and the Floridas, the Alabamas and the Auburns, and move the ball. He established a run game. I'm a big believer in the run game. As much as I love to just sit back and sling it, it is so important for an offense to be effective. So yes, I do believe that he can be a top 3 offense in the Pac-12. The good thing is there's a lot of question marks at other offenses in the Pac-12. You obviously have, Justin Herbert coming back at Oregon. Sounds like there's some quarterback controversy. Everybody thought Jacob Eason was, when Jake Browning left, was going to be the guy in Washington. Sounds like that might not be the case. They're breaking a new guy in down at Arizona State. I'm not sold on JT Daniels. UCLA's a mess. And we avoid some of the key teams. So we can rank up there. We can move the ball effectively. And Huntley has the tools. He's a senior. He's going to be more mature. We saw that maturity increase in him last year prior to getting injured. Some of us, myself included, were a little frustrated, with the offense, the first few games last year. But I had to remind myself that that Tyler Huntley had only started 12 games going into last season, even though he started as a part-time as a freshman and a sophomore, or he started as a sophomore, but he got hurt. So he didn't have that experience. So the game should slow down to him. The game should just be a lot easier on him, seeing the field, making those decisions, and the pieces are in place.
Your brother ever get married, by the way? Probably shouldn't do that on air. Did he ever get hitched?
Yeah, he did.
Nice.
He got married and just had a little boy.
Good.
A couple 3 months ago.
I remember, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I remember I was talking to him. He's like, yeah, man, everybody thinks I'm old. I need to get married. I'm like, dude, chill out. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. But please give him my best, man. Tell him I said hi.
I will, for sure.
And look.
He's down at Snow. He's the coordinator down at Snow.
That's right. I always really love your bro. So please tell him I said hello. And let's chat soon, okay? Let's use you and your analysis throughout the season, if that's cool, all right?
I'm happy to jump on anytime.
Awesome, man.
I would love to, Spence.
All right, buddy. Be well. Thanks for your time, okay?
Okay, thanks. You too.